In the sultry night of 1976, the flickering neon lights of the Nogales bar cast a kaleidoscope of colors onto the dusty streets. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of cheap whiskey and stale cigarette smoke, mingling with the murmur of voices and the faint strains of a country song playing on the jukebox. Seated at the dimly lit bar, Maria Rodriguez nursed a glass of bourbon, her eyes scanning the crowd warily. Her jet-black hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, framing her olive-skinned face, and her hazel eyes shimmered with a mix of apprehension and defiance. "Another round, Maria?" the bartender asked, his voice gruff with familiarity. Maria shook her head, her gaze drifting to the mirror behind the bar, where the faces of the patrons reflected back at her like distorted apparitions. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following her every move. As she turned away from the mirror, her eyes met those of a man seated at the far end of the bar. He was tall and lean, with a rugged charm that belied the darkness lurking within. His piercing blue eyes seemed to see right through her, sending a shiver down her spine. "Care to join me?" the man called out, his voice smooth as silk but tinged with a hint of danger. Maria hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But something drew her to him, a magnetic pull that she couldn't resist. With a nod, she slid off her bar stool and made her way toward him, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached, the man's lips curled into a knowing smile, and he gestured for her to take a seat beside him. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice low and seductive. "Maria," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maria," he repeated, savoring the sound of her name on his lips. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman. Maria forced a smile, her unease growing with each passing moment. There was something about this man that set her on edge, something primal and dangerous that lurked beneath his charming exterior. Just then, a commotion erupted at the other end of the bar, drawing their attention. A group of rowdy patrons had gotten into a heated argument, their voices rising above the din of the bar. Without warning, the man beside Maria leapt to his feet, his hand instinctively reaching for the gun tucked into his waistband. "Stay here," he muttered, his voice low and urgent. But Maria knew she couldn't stay, couldn't risk getting caught up in whatever violence was about to unfold. With a quick glance around the room, she slipped off her bar stool and made a beeline for the door, her heart pounding in her chest. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin, a welcome relief from the suffocating heat of the bar. She hurried down the deserted street, the sound of her own footsteps echoing in the silence. But as she rounded the corner, she stumbled upon a scene straight out of her worst nightmares. A figure stood in the shadows, their features obscured by darkness, their eyes gleaming with an unholy light. With a gasp, Maria stumbled backward, her heart racing as she realized the truth. The man from the bar, the one with the piercing blue eyes, was no ordinary stranger. He was something far more sinister, something that lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim her soul. Frozen in terror, Maria watched as the man stepped forward, his form melting into the darkness like a wraith. "You can't escape me, Maria," his voice whispered on the wind, sending a chill down her spine. With a cry of fear, Maria turned and fled into the night, her pulse pounding in her ears as she raced through the deserted streets of Nogales. Behind her, she could hear the echo of footsteps, growing louder with each passing moment. But no matter how fast she ran, she could not outrun the darkness that pursued her, the shadowy specter that lurked at the edge of her consciousness, waiting to claim her soul. As she stumbled into the darkness, the last thing Maria saw was the glint of moonlight on a rusted blade, and the sound of laughter echoing in the night. And then, there was nothing but silence.